Now, Britain is to get a new anti-Muslim hostility Tsar under plans to be outlined by the government on Monday, which will also include a new definition of Islamophobia.
Back in December, Sir Keir Starmer assured MPs during Prime Minister's questions that there would be no introduction or reintroduction of a blasphemy law.
Let's talk to political commentator Khadija Khan. Good morning to you. Nice to see you this morning. I've got to ask, I mean, certainly when it comes to this hostility Tsar, is this necessary in the UK, do you think?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on. This appears to be yet another bizarre and desperate effort by the Labour Party aimed at saving the Muslim vote. In fact, they appear driven by an overwhelming anxiety about losing a crucial segment of their vote base. Everything sounds not too bad in theory, but when it comes to practicality, it does seem to ring alarm bells. I mean, there is a special representative on anti-Muslim hostility who will likely to be appointed based on the endorsement of a lobby advocating for the legal definition of Islamophobia. This lobby seeks to shut down criticism of all shades of Islam, and their efforts have nothing to do with protecting Muslims as people. Then there are proposed regulations to address divisive content and to ensure trusted news sources, which means these plans are likely to restrict free speech in our society. This approach could lead to a crackdown on divisive content online. However, who will decide or define what constitutes divisive content? If everyone agreed or was compelled to agree on everything, it would not foster a genuine debate or discussion that is, again, not something desirable in a vibrant democracy such as ours. This report defines, again, the prejudicial stereotyping of Muslims as part of a collective group with specific characteristics designed to stir up hatred against them. This is similar to the definition of Islamophobia, and this could lead to have blasphemy laws by the back doors. In these plans, again, flying English, Scottish, and Union flags has been labeled as tools of hate, and the misuse of national symbols to exclude or intimidate. I think this is very divisive. Last year, we know that everyone flying the flag of this country was labeled or branded as far right. I mean, there are some policies mentioned in these plans that could represent a significant breakthroughs if taken seriously. But the risk is that while some negative aspect of the strategy may materialize, the positive outcomes will be overlooked in a bid to appease the religious and cultural zealots. I don't see any need to have any such thing, any czar on anti-Muslim hostility in our country.
It's sort of increasingly, as I heard your argument there, it increasingly looks as though it's the Prime Minister yet again outsourcing a very sensitive subject so that it will, any controversial moves that are made or remarks that are made over anything to do with Islam is going to be outsourced. It will be somebody else's fault, not his.
As I said, it's very divisive. The tone of these plans are very divisive. And we have to admit that there has been a willful reluctance in dealing issues related to integration. And in these plans, it is mentioned that integration is a two-way street. So it is not a positive way to put out your plans to deal with this situation. And whenever there would be any criticism of Islam or anything which is related to and associated with Islam, that would be shut down by saying that this may incite anti-Muslim bigotry, whereas the reality is anti-Muslim bigotry is entirely different from criticism of Islam, which is a set of ideas. And in this country, I think this is the freedom of speech is something that we hold very dear, and we would like to preserve this right for all of us. And people should be free to criticize ideas. And there is anti-Muslim bigotry, which should never be acceptable. And it is not acceptable in our society, I would say, whenever there is any incident or instance, anti-Muslim bigotry, rear its ugly head, we unequivocally condemn that. We unequivocally, stand against it, and we protect the people who are Muslim or from Muslim community. I think this is another way of demonizing the society and the humane laws and policy we already have in place.
OK. Khadija Khan, really good to get your thoughts on that today. Thank you.
Yeah, I must say, whenever any government in the last few years has ever appointed a czar, as they call them, to deal with a specific problem, nothing ever happens.
No, it doesn't seem to make a big difference. It's just trying to placate a group. But I thought she made a very interesting point when she sort of said it defines Muslims as a singular group.
Yes.
As a bloc with shared characteristics, which isn't actually true. Interesting view. I'm sure you'll let us know what you think about that.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 73% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 73% off ExpressVPN plus 4 extra months free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Right, there's been lots of talk today, and it always seems to get everyone's go, and I understand why. Britain getting a new anti-Muslim hostility czar under plans to be outlined by the government on Monday, which may also include, it's been controversial so far, but this new definition of Islamophobia.
Yeah, back in December, Keir Starmer assured MPs during Prime Minister's questions that there would be no introduction or reintroduction of a blasphemy law.
So we're asking, why do we need an anti-Muslim hostility czar? Well, let's talk to the director of the Campaign for Shared European Values, Mohammed Amin, and political commentator Charlie Downs. Good to see you both this morning. Mohammed, why is it necessary? Because it's almost defining Muslims as a singular group, isn't it? Which doesn't seem to be realistic.
Good morning. In Britain, two groups of people, British Jews and British Muslims, face far higher levels of hostility as people who are members of groups than do the rest of the country. And I think we do need a strategy both to combat anti-Semitism and to combat anti-Muslim hostility. So I'm pleased that the government is doing this.
And we do have an anti-Semitism czar. Is that, have I got that right?
Yes.
Too many antis in that. We do have an anti-Semitism czar. But I mean, I had to look up his name, and I don't know whether you would feel he's actually ever achieved very much.
I think the role is to coordinate how the government deals with these issues, I don't follow very closely exactly what the government has been doing on it, but the concept of having people who set out to combat this kind of hostility, I think, is desirable.
Charlie, how do you argue against that?
Well, I actually don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that having, Islamophobia czars and anti-Semitism czars and all the rest of it is completely in keeping with the logic of multiculturalism, because, human beings, we were not really designed, in my view, to live in the kind of diverse society that Britain has become in recent years. It's just not in our nature, in my view. And therefore, it's not surprising that the state needs to take a very heavy-handed approach to dealing with what this leaked draft document calls social cohesion. Because, it is not, as I say, a part of human nature to live among people who are very different to oneself. And that really is the point here for me, is that it's not whether having an Islamophobia czar is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just what a damning indictment it is that we need one in the first place, because the British people were never asked whether they wanted mass immigration and the resultant demographic and religious changes that the country has gone through and will continue to go through. So look, I think if the British people want to live in a country like this, which I don't think they do, by the way, but if they do, and if our state wants us to live in a country like this, roles like an Islamophobia czar are completely unsurprising.
Mohammed?
I'm slightly confused. Does Charlie think that everybody in the country should belong to the Church of England and we shouldn't have Catholics living in this country? Does he think we should not have Jews living in this country? What exactly is he saying?
Well, look, as a Catholic, obviously I don't think that. I mean, Catholics have been persecuted in this country for hundreds of years, not so much these days, of course. But it is certainly the case that when we talk about religious tolerance and when Enlightenment philosophers after the wars of religion talk about religious tolerance, we're talking about that within the context of Christianity. Because there is a far greater deal of shared values and principles about morality and the nature of the universe and human nature within Christianity between, for example, a Catholic and an Anglican, than there is between any type of Christian and a Muslim. Like, there are such fundamental differences between these groups that, as I said before, it's not surprising that the state needs to get involved and mediate between these two groups. And the other point here, by the way...
No, forgive me, Charlie, but there's a bit of an issue here. I mean, there's certainly lots of communities where the churches and mosques and things actually work together. They don't agree on the religion, but they still have a great deal of tolerance. But the other aspect is, of course, what you're doing, which is what a lot of people unfortunately do, is that you are defining Muslims and the religion of Islam as a bloc, where obviously the problem that we've had certainly over the last few decades with Islam has been those who are extremists, and it's not the vast majority of people.
No, it's not. That's right. But I'm not the one that's defining the Muslim community as a bloc. It's, in fact, the government itself that is doing that by appointing this Islamophobia czar. And it is the case that the vast majority of Muslims in this country are perfectly peaceful, reasonable people. But it does have to be said that we are now seeing a problem as a result of geopolitical events that are taking place thousands of miles away. Keir Starmer this week had to come out and reassure the British public that the conflict in Iran would not be allowed to play out on our own streets. And as I said already, the only reason that that's a concern is because we have people from the region living in our country. And as I've already said, the British people, at every opportunity for the last 60 years, have voted against the policy of mass immigration, and yet it has still been imposed upon us. So once again, we're having a conversation about second-order consequences of of original causes that are ultimately against the will of the British people.
And Mohammed, I think one of the main concerns that most people have about this is the effect it could have on free speech, on the ability to criticise a certain body of people, because that would be seen as against what the Tsar will judge as anti-Islam.
All I know about the government's proposals is what I read in a leaked article in The Spectator. But from that article, it's quite clear that the government is taking a very robust position. We do not have a blasphemy law. We abolished it, in particular because the blasphemy law only protected Christianity and didn't protect any other religions. The government has no intention of bringing back a law of blasphemy, full stop.
All right, you two, we've got to leave it there. We're out of time, sadly. Mohammed Amin, Charlie Downs, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you.